Greetings, Wahlburgers. Today, I'm going to ask that you analyze the difference between these two big terms, patriots and loyalists. To do this today, you are going to need this friendly little paper that I gave you before you left, hopefully yesterday, where you are going to be deciding if someone would be listed as a patriot or a loyalist, or I'm going to throw a different term at you as well, neutral. So let's take a look at what all those terms mean. So we need to ask ourselves, how did American colonists feel about breaking away from England? Like our journal showed us yesterday, this was not an immediate thing. Not everyone wanted to break away from England right away. And so there is an eventual buildup of people who want to break away from England, and there's people that want to actually stay with England as well. Our first group that we're going to look at are patriots. And this is probably the definition that I would totally include on this paper. But as you might be aware, these are colonists who favored separation from Great Britain. Not that you need to know their arguments specifically, but some of the things that they may say. One, they didn't have representation in Parliament. Sorry, that should be a capital P there. I just noticed that now. They're also going to say, hey, Britain was too far away to govern the colonies. I know mentioned this in a couple of classes, but there was an entire Atlantic Ocean that was dividing the American colonies from England. If there is a problem in the colonies, well, you are going to have to send a letter, which is going to take about 4 weeks or whatever to get across the ocean. Parliament's going to discuss it. Let's say hypothetically it's a week if you're lucky. They're going to send a response. That's another 4 weeks. You're looking at over 2 months before England can do anything about any problems that you have. So Britain was too far away, especially at that time, to govern these colonies. They would also make the argument that North America doesn't need England for trade at all. Okay, we've looked at how they have a whole bunch of different resources, whether it be cotton or tobacco being the big ones at that time. Why do they need England really to help them out at all? A lot of this patriot fervor, if you will, really gained attention with a pamphlet called Common Sense by the author Thomas Paine, who says some of these things. Why should a tiny island govern an entire continent is one of the things that he argues for. But yeah, overall, we're looking at patriots as these colonists who want to break away. So on the other hand, and again, put that definition here, are our loyalists. And if the patriots want to break away, well, definitely the loyalists want to stay with England. They want to stay with Great Britain. Well, why? Why would they want to do that? Number one, they're going to argue that Britain is too powerful out of an enemy. At this point in time, England has the most powerful military, army, and navy in the entire world. So to go up against that as these little small colonies that don't have armies, that's a bold choice. Also, hey, England and the colonies have a shared history and language. So why would we break that up just because there's a shared history there? We're like brothers. No, let's stay the course. Some people are starting to realize too, if we want to fight a war, sorry, I used the we incorrectly there. But if America wants to win a war against England, they're going to need France. And who's France really going to want to help? Because again, England's super powerful. France is a powerful nation too, but they just got their butts handed to them in the French and Indian War. Who's the French really going to help here? So they don't see any international support for the colonies coming anytime soon. And it's not just a handful of people that support this idea. There's about 15 to 20% of the colonists that are definitely loyalists. Typically, these people are wealthier. I mean, if you're wealthy, typically you don't want to change things up because you might lose your wealth. We do see a good portion of loyalists centered around New York City, specifically at this time. Now, one last term I want you to be aware of then too is neutral. Everyone might be familiar with this word as well. But these are colonists that don't have a strong opinion on independence. Could go either way. Kind of just wanted to wait and see what happens and go from there. And there's a good number, I think, with that as well. So those are our three terms: patriot, loyalists, and neutral. So it begs the question, what do we do now? Well, this paper that I gave you yesterday, what I'm going to ask you to do is read through what we have colonists A through G. So that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 7 different colonists here. Woo! What I would like you to do is read through each of these. And from what I've mentioned in this PowerPoint so far, do you think this person is going to be a patriot, someone who's a loyalist, or maybe somewhere in between? And some of these are kind of, gray. There's no one right or wrong answer for some. I mean, there might be some definitively wrong answers. Okay. But I can usually see you arguing one way or another on these. So, for example, if I look at Colonist A is a poor farmer in the Hudson Valley of New York. Colonist A has paid no attention to the trouble brewing in the colonies. His day-to-day struggle is to maintain his farm and family. That's what worries him. His problems have recently become worse. His landowner, a loyalist, has had some financial troubles, and to get himself out of his enormous debts, his landowner raised Colonist A's rent 3 times in the last 5 months. It's ridiculous. Colonist A barely earns enough from selling his crops to pay the original rent amount, and now with the raise in rent, Colonist A will be evicted, kicked off his farm. He and his wife and 6 children fear that they will have nowhere to go. They are forced to leave the farm. Okay, there's a couple of things that I notice right away. So he's not really friendly with his landlord there, who's a loyalist. So there's some beef there. Kind of poorer. He's also in New York, but he doesn't really pay much attention to what's going on. So I kind of put him somewhere, maybe patriot, but I'm almost leaning more neutral, kind of in the middle there, if you will. Just because he doesn't have a strong opinion there. But if anything, maybe he just wants to get back at his landlord, loyalist buddy there. That's kind of where, but that's where, again, I can see loyalist, I can see patriot there. So some of these are not very clear cut. Some of them, I think, are. So that's step 1. So colonist A through G, figure this out. But from there, there's an added challenge. This is where I'm going to ask you to go to the old Schoology. So let me get to the old Schoology. Oop, don't look at that. If you go into current course material, this week's folder, 2.1, lead up to the revolution. It's kind of grayed out right now, but you're going to have a folder shortly that's going to say patriots and loyalists. And ultimately, this little file here that says recruit a spy, this is your task. Maybe, if it pops up. Oh, there we go. So during the American Revolution, during the actual fighting, and I know we haven't talked about the actual fighting yet, but what I think is really one of the most fascinating things about the American Revolution is that both armies, both the American colonies and the British colonies, have this extensive spy network to keep track of what the enemy is doing and to try to get intel and all of that stuff. You, yes you, have been hired by the British, to recruit a spy in the colonies. You are going to have to choose a spy from somewhere in this packet to be a spy for the British. So you are looking for someone who is going to spy on the American armies there. So here's some things you may want to keep in mind. Number 1, the spy cannot be someone that the Patriots mistrust. There needs to be a level of trust there, so the Patriots will be able to might give some information out. So the spy should be someone who appears to agree with the Patriots. Number 2, the spy should live in a populated area where the Patriots are active and can report on Patriot activity. So if they live somewhere where there's a lot more people, there's probably a better chance that there's going to be more information, more activity to spy on. Someone in a rural area, like farmland and stuff, there's not going to be as much info to find out. Finally, the spy should probably have something that the British can provide them, money or military protection, because if you're caught spying, that's not a great punishment right there, right? So, is there some sort of something that the British can provide them to entice them, to persuade them um, to spy? So, which of those colonists A through G, would be the best spy? And then I want to know why you're going to choose that one. I think there are, again, are a couple of answers there using that criteria. Some of the Patriots will trust, someone who lives in a populated area, and someone who might be able to get something out of the British here. So all of these are things to keep in mind as you're thinking of who is going to spy for the British. All right. So I would like to know who your spy is by Friday. Um, right? Yeah, it doesn't have to be a full-fledged paragraph or anything like that. But hey, who's your spy? And maybe a reason or two why you chose that spy. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, I think that's all. So hey, good luck. You know how to get a hold of me either by email or in the chat today in class. Otherwise, figure them out. Are they patriots, loyalists, somewhere in between? And who would be the best spy? Dun dun dun.